We have a most interesting session today. Uh, Hands up, how many of you thought we'd ever have autonomous vehicles amongst us? Anyone who thought there'd be autonomous vehicles when you were growing up? Wow, that's good. That's good. So I remember driving the first autonomous vehicle, or not driving, back in 2005. It was at Fiat, and it was a completely sensor experiment kind of thing. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to die. But of course, we went through that. And I also remember when I was in school, when I started learning computing, I remember this massive debate going on in public. There were public protests, there were, dharnas. Computerization will take away livelihood from India. Can you imagine a country without computerization? And this was going on for 4 or 5 years, and we were learning it as kids and thinking, is this something wrong we're doing? So that's the scenario. I think it's a cycle that repeats itself, fear of technology. You guys would agree? I'd like to make this panel introduce itself. They're amongst the cutting edge of research going on in this space. Now, this is a very tech-heavy space. It's a very software-driven space. Most of the sensor data that is collected has to be run through a software, and then it gives instructions to motors. But I'd like to start with Gagandeep. Can you introduce yourself? I think your mic is there.
Hi, so I'm founder and CEO of Minus Zero. We have been building foundational models for autonomous driving. So think if I dumb it down, think of very similar. You saw foundational models maybe generate text for you, generate images for you. What if a large model could actually drive a car or a robot for you, right? That's what we started building, and we have been demonstrated. Fully autonomous drives in roads in Bangalore. If anyone is from Bangalore, in seats of HSR, Kormangla and all, and so yeah, very similar to how what Tesla had been doing for the world. Our goal was to democratize the technology for all other OEMs to give that Android moment. If Tesla is like an iOS, we wanted to be that Android to, let's say, Tatas and Mahindras of the world.
Sanjeev is next. I'd let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Sanjeev Sharma, founder and CEO of Swaayatt Robots. We have been developing a transferring technology for highly stochastic traffic dynamics, the kind of traffic dynamics that you see on roads in India. So our goal has been to enable level 5 autonomy, hopefully before the end of this decade. And so far, we have sort of been doing autonomous driving across the entire spectrum of the environments, which includes on roads, off roads, geofence, campuses. We've done more than 103 demos on roads in India, and hopefully in the few months time we will showcase a scalable L5 transferring technology on roads in India.
Now, while these two gentlemen focus on autonomous driving, Emma there is focusing on the thing that makes money, the data. Is that right?
Yes, but I actually started a self-driving vehicle in China together with Baidu, Chinese Google. 2015, we launched in parks. So that was one of the first companies.
I've seen those cars, and it was a shock at the time.
Yeah, it was, and it was one of the first vehicles in a park. A park is a closed environment with different regulation, and it drove in 6 kilometers per hour, which means that it was more handleable. But I have been working with automotive industry for 20 years, together with the largest tier 1 suppliers to the industry within active safety and autonomous. But right now we have launched a company in India called Nexular, connecting the lightweight vehicles to the cloud to actually enable financing and different type of business models for the OEMs, like battery swap.
Okay, so let's start by zooming out. Let's come right out and look at the overall scenario. If we see today, if we look at, fatalities on our roads, because a lot of what we get in autonomous driving will come from a safety angle first. It has to, eventually, it has to pass safety standards. But the interesting thing is your approach is also safety, and autonomous braking is the first level where after a point when you're getting into an accident, the first few meters or the first few dozen meters or the first 20 or 30 meters, they are critical in preventing the accident, saving your life, and that's where tech from these guys, the first level of tech will come in. So I think, what are your thoughts on that? Is that the right way to go into it? As I think commercial vehicles are being mandated.
Yes. I think for there are obviously, let's say from a product standpoint, right? Today, I know a lot of times. See, today if you take any car out there on the road which is launching today, they have some or other ADAS tech, and a lot of time people ask me the question, right? Okay, Nitin Gadkari said he will not allow autonomous vehicles on the road, right? Very fair, very genuine ask. So any technology, particularly in automotive, passes through three layers, right? The first comes safety, then it has to transition towards, let's say, utility, and then third is leisure. And I think we are still, as a country, like today, if you are going outside, safety bars have been, taken up. AEBs, automatic emergency braking, work pretty well. There was once time I was driving in US, I kind of just little bit dozed off, and the car basically braked because I couldn't stop it on time. So yeah, it works. But I think in India, still safety is before even autonomy as a utility where you can just take your hands off. There's a big part of the safety where which is still yet needs to be solved. Yes, the cars can be safe in very structured environments where the lane markings are there, or standard sites of roads are there, but still lot of AEBs, automatic emergency braking, which seems like a simple feature. There's one problem OEM says is false AEBs. There's a garbage can on the road and randomly you're driving at 120 and the car slams the brake, and it is more risky than actually becoming safe.
Let me interject and say that a lot of the vehicles we started getting first, maybe around 5-7 years ago, would suddenly deploy their brakes and very aggressively. So maybe you're going through a small lane and somebody turns around and goes back, or crosses the road, and you come to a halt from in less than a foot from 20, and that's that's heavier than our normal brake, maximum brake test, because you don't expect it, and it goes slam, and then you're going, oh god, where's the software, let me put it off, and then you have to go through 7 layers of menu and put it off, and that's the reality today. Like
as a humans also, right? Sometimes on
exactly.
expressway we have to go from fifth gear to first in a matter of.
And the fear is of course a bike rear-ending you, or another car rear-ending you, or a preventive measure causing an accident. So it has to evolve past that. Sanjeev, your thoughts?
So I think it's a nice feature to have like the AEB, but to answer it, like I look at this question from technological standpoint. So see what matters for autonomous driving, for sustainable autonomous driving, is the safety, cost, and scalability. So if you look at the Indian domain, like it's very chaotic, it's very stochastic, it's very complex. So definitely like one of the harder questions is like, can you make those ADAS or autonomy features work in the level of compute and the level of energy and the level of money that the consumer can spend? And mostly like if you build a tech that is like addressing those parameters at scale, then I think it's very easy to actually build to bring not just the AEB, but like lot more autonomy or ADAS features into the market. So for example, let's take off-road autonomous driving. It's like so most of the application, if you look at it, like they would be like from the military and the mining domain. And I think the technology like that we have been building, or even if you look at the global autonomy stack, that is ready to answer the autonomy question in India. So definitely from a consumer standpoint, if you leave it to the OEM and the regulatory, it may take some time, but from a technology standpoint, I think like right now is the right time to actually bring a lot more to the market, and not just the level 2 features in the consumer vehicles.
Okay. Emma, can I flip the question around a bit? What kind of data are you seeing from AEB systems in India? Have you been looking at that?
So if we're looking at autonomous, and that autonomous will make Indian roads much more safer, I would say that India had so much easier battery that actually can do directly to save life.
Absolutely.
For example, seatbelts, alcohols, and education, how you behave in traffic so everyone drives in a way so it benefits for everyone. So that's like very, very easier step, that this doesn't need technology to save life. If we're looking at what the OEMs is doing now with introducing ADAS and autonomous drive, especially autonomous drive, is that they are changing their business models. So they don't want to sell vehicles any longer. They sell the service that autonomous vehicles is providing. But it's quite far away. But right now what we are building is the infrastructure to transform to digital services today. Because this is a transition that all OEMs need to do, and they will do it before they introduce autonomous drive. And that's the data layer that we are building.
Yeah, that's the most important service, right? Because transition is disruption. And for a person who's in business, he wants the least disruption. So I think your service is extremely important, how to transition without disruption. But we'll also look at our environment here, and the Minister for Transport, Nitin Gadkari, has said around 50 to 70 lakh jobs depend on self-driving cars not coming. But let me toss this back to you all. If you have assisted autonomous driving, which basically means there's a driver sitting there and the car is driving on its own, just like you have today in an airline, you get on the flight, the pilot, he can take off on his own. Recently, a Garmin system, a very low-grade Garmin system, managed to land a light aircraft after the pilot had passed out. He'd had a heart attack, he collapsed, and this Garmin system managed to land the aircraft. So we've reached that level of technology. But to get there, to make it not a political thing, is it possible for us to have assisted ADAS? Can I start with you, Gagandeep?
Yes, I think that is very correct. I think when we talk about utopian world of removing the driver, I think we need to know even US has not been able to remove the driver entirely. But the here it's a vision that keeps us technocrats, keeps us motivated. But thinking this will, like I always say, this will happen maybe in 20 years of timelines, and then we say in 20 years, let's say today, okay, an auto rickshaw driver is dependent on driving as a job. His son or daughter would not want to become a auto rickshaw driver, right? He or she would want to become an engineer, UPSC or whatnot, right? As the country grows, India will also reach a stage where driving will be a very high paying job. So today we say, okay, cost of mobility is very low in India. If you are betting on India will grow, the cost will go high, and that day you will anyway need all that. So at the same time, the starting adoption comes from assisted. I think there are two areas where it works. One is when we say safety angle, like how we make the cars more and more safer. It could be some XYZ features to reduce accidents. The other option is where today the cost of driver is actually very high. Let's say today, one of the use cases we saw, okay, you have airports which need to run on 24/7, right? And they are very sophisticated vehicles which a normal person can't operate. Or even let's say cranes. Today if I ask you to operate a JCB, I don't think how good of a basically driver you are, you can operate that. And there, if let's say one accident, the cost is very high. So I'll just give you, today if you go in an airport, in that movement, one disruption can cost a couple of $1 million, loss of time. And that is where automation makes sense. Like, this is same like factory automation. When you want to run something 24/7, you can't it's not possible for humans to do it. And that is what in early ages, basically, in first 10 years is going to happen. And eventually the day as a generation we change that we do not want to drive at all, that time maybe technology would have been evolved that much that, okay, it's capable, we are capable to do that. Right now it's not possible by any technology available, whether in India, whether in China or in US, to remove the driver entirely.
Correct. And, we've seen this over the years. We've seen factory robot trolleys moving around factories, supplying parts, So when you're assembling, the trolley comes and, they put it on. We've also seen it in airports. All of us have gone through airports where the terminal to terminal train is not driven by a person. It's autonomous. So we've actually seen in that very very highly geofenced area. We've seen autonomous vehicles. It's just that when we are trying to catch our next flight, we're not paying attention. Sanjeev,
So what's the question?
thoughts on this? On whether assisted autonomous is the right way forward.
So definitely, I mean, because like it will take some time to actually like achieve level 5. I mean, even by most aggressive estimate, I mean, I'd say like it's still 2.5 years, 3 years away from today. So it will take that much time. At the meantime, like I mean, if you look at the entire ecosystem built around autonomous, for example, any disruption in any industry for that matter brought some new jobs. If you're talking about job loss, for example, and look at the autonomous driving industry as a whole. I mean, there's one part which includes like AI and building the autonomous system and building the intelligence and the software layer. But it goes a lot deeper. For example, like a lot of AI systems and robotic systems require like data annotation. So maybe we can build an entire ecosystem where the displacement that is going to happen, we can provide alternative jobs to drivers. We can train them for the maintenance. For example, I mean, an autonomous vehicle. Let's suppose if it's going on a very bumpy road, it's very easy for the sensor system to be decalibrated, and you can build an entire ecosystem, an entire maintenance system, so that like and you can and this is exactly like what we have been like working through. I run a second startup like Deepak, and where we provide very deep knowledge, but also like we plan on initiating this endeavor where the displacement that we anticipate are going to take place as a result of autonomy, we can provide alternative jobs in the entire ecosystem as a whole to take care of them.
But in your opinion, how long should this assisted phase last?
Um, from technology standpoint, I would say like it's going to be like 2.5 to 3 years from today.
That's it.
But then
and-
pricing is also a problem, right? I think.
Exactly. Emma, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so let's put an autonomous vehicle in the streets of Mumbai. Everyone will know that this is an autonomous vehicle and they will take advantage of it. It will push it to side, it will go to make it stop, because this traffic situations here is actually more like a herd. It's not so much rules, it's like the opportunity in the moment. Can I bypass someone? And of course you can do autonomy for this one, but in the world when who is responsible if something happens? Will the OEMs, manufacturers, say, yes, let's bunch them a little bit so we can play the same rules, because that's the rule how it is.
This is a very real scenario. You have a crossroad, signals are off, the autonomous vehicle has to be super safe. It may not move for another 10 minutes, because there'll be someone cutting across exactly like she said. I think that's a really good thought.
So it will be useless. So the transition period, I say there will not be a transition period.
Also,
Okay.
one point I would maybe add for the audience, when everyone is talking about autonomous driving, right, the first thought that comes to the mind is cars. But the sector and opportunity is much bigger. I think which Sanjeev might also agree, he has been working on off-road autonomy, right? So there are a lot of use cases we also found where these are risky jobs, where people want to, replace humans, mines, where let's say people can get stuck. There's one use case was coming, border patrolling, right? There are risky people, where someone's life can get lost, right? You want to do surveillance in basically some dense forest. So there is a lot of allied use cases where the first set of fully autonomy would come before it actually comes on the normal consumers.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. You have a risky job, whether it is a mine, it's an airport, 24-hour job, which is, you cannot manage 24 hours. Or you have border patrol where you just need sensors out there. Or, the Star Wars scenario when the pod landed on Hoth, if anyone follows. But also, let's look at the flip side of it. If we don't commit as a country to, developing these systems, will we be the losers? Imagine if we didn't get into computing fully. We can't even imagine it today. So, looking at how this infrastructure, the software is built, the kind of investment it needs, the kind of programmers, the kind of thought, the kind of risk taking, the kind of goal setting, would this be a important thing to be, the part of the discussion, that do we as a nation want to acknowledge that, okay, we are fine with not being part of this progress the world is going to make?
So, Shapur, I'll ask you one thing. What has been the topic recently? I think from past 5 years, I've been trying to diversify a lot of my portfolio in USD because rupee is declining. Narendra Modi came and asked everyone to stop buying gold. The entire reason is we import more things than we could export as a country. And in every tech, we always had been catching up. The world built ChatGPT, now we want to build in sovereign AI. If we really want to become a world leader, there has to be few areas which we take up on a front line so that we are faster. Now you can choose. We can always argue, is this sector do you want to go in? But my thing is, okay, at least if there is one sector which people are working in, it's better to go double down on. So right now, which is one sector anyone can think of where India is actually exporting? Services has been the biggest, which right now it is declining. If you see any of the Nifty's IT, you see what was their YTD performance. So we need to find opportunities. And again, you need to put eggs in multiple baskets. You cannot just put on only one.
You're saying this can be an allied service to that.
Not service. We need to start selling products. See, we
No,
are
sir.
catching up on silicon. We are catching up on AI. So what is tomorrow? Maybe autonomous driving, maybe space tech. I think space tech is one place where we have been able to pick up drones. See, we need to stop following the West, that let the West do it. Then we'll try to do it for India. I think all these one thing I see is, we all say, okay, there is a solution built in the West. Let's build it for India.
Sanjeev?
That has to change.
Sure. I mean, see, whoever leads autonomy and AI is going to rule the world in the next decade or so. So it's very important for the country to actually invest in the future tech. And the autonomous driving happens to be the most complex physical AI problem of this decade and perhaps the next to come as well. And solving this problem, I mean, opens the door not just for like ground autonomy. Like, I mean, you have aerial autonomy. You have like many applications. I mean, India is like, I think, one of the biggest importers when it comes to defense tech, and AI autonomy is like going to be the next import. I mean, that India is going to do. So if we need to, if you want to get rid of this cycle of like importing the tech and be the exporter of the tech, and it's not just like, I mean, it's not just that we should like always follow like what is happening in the West and import the tech from there. We are actually the builders of like we have been doing like uh, cutting edge R&D.
Do we have an
Yeah.
inherent advantage because of our software base? Is that correct to say, or is it not really an advantage?
See, we can build. I would say, if I just take example of Valley,
Yes.
major of their talent is brain drain, right? People like I would have also gone if COVID hadn't happened. Honestly, I'll be guilty as charged. I would have gone for maybe masters abroad, then would have stayed there. Might have been working in Tesla or there, right? So
But
talent is not a
I'm
problem.
asking, as a nation, do we have the requisite software talent to
Yes.
take advantage of this space, this new space? And should we be shooting for that?
We have talent. We just do not let them go out. We have to incentivize them to stay in the country.
Is finance the issue? Sorry, Emma. Is finance the issue? You think more finance? Is it? How crucial is that financial element of support, of allowing you to build a team, allowing you to take a risk and reach nowhere, and to have 10 directions you go in and only one working? How important is finance for that?
I would say that India has an advantage because in India you need to do everything 10x more efficient, 10x more cheaper.
Absolutely, we know that in the car industry.
Which means that in India we can think completely different. In US and Europe you develop cars that weighs 3 tons and cost 100,000 US dollar. Here, let's think different. Why design a car that weighs that much, that is that expensive, that takes less seats than a tuk-tuk, when we are driving in 15 kilometers per hour? Use that.
So let me give you an example, actually concrete example. A few years back when India still ran on carburetors, which mix fuel and air through a mechanical device. We started going into fuel injection. And at that time, obviously, we were getting the tech from outside India. And slowly but surely, cars like the Nano, a normal car would run on 7, 8 sensors, and the Nano would run on 3 sensors. And then this technology went back to the rest of the world. So do we have a case for low cost autonomous in India?
See,
What Emma is doing actually.
it can be developed. I think like what example you were giving, right? One of the best example is if you see the motorcycling two-wheeler space.
Yeah, it went to
Royal
motorcycle.
Enfield was a dying company, and Eicher Motors revived it, right? And now they also export. Can this happen for other sectors? Yes, right? Like capability is not a problem. It's like our choice, which sector we decide to go all double down in.
Okay, let me ask these people who are very deeply entrenched in this technology. I'll ask them individual, in a question that will be difficult to answer. What's your sort of, gut feel for your event horizon for, fully autonomous? And do you see it happening in the next, few cycles, or is it a really, really difficult thing and we're not sure?
Honestly, I don't think so. I sees it has not yet happened even in a structured country like areas like Europe and US. When you say this fully autonomous, and India is way difficult
Yeah.
than that.
And of course, a fully autonomous is different from what a Waymo does in a gate fenced area.
Yes. Honestly, everyone outside the ideal timeline is must says 3 to 4 years. Then you multiply it by 3, it's usually 9 to 10 years, which is the industry veterans agree.
Exactly. This is any future technology is very, very difficult to predict. I'll give you another example from the car industry. In the 1990s, Mercedes said in 5 years all cars will be hydrogen, and they invested an absurd amount, billions and billions of dollars into it. They believed their own estimate, and of course, like you said, Musk said 3 years, and
Right. And
we don't know.
I'll
Electric cars, the same thing. 15, 20 years ago, they said all cars will be electric. It's not possible. It has to be a combination. So, Sanjeev, your thoughts on the event horizon of fully autonomous?
So on a lighter note, I'd say like come to Bhopal, we'll show it to you tomorrow. So, but definitely, I mean, at a larger scale of operation, I'd say like, I mean, from
I'm saying close to zero error, which is the real problem.
I'd say from technology standpoint, 2.5 to 3 years, and to be able to enable mass adoption, I'd say like if you're talking about the Indian context, I think regulation everything also has to come into place. So I think like I don't know the timeline for that. Maybe like 5 years, maybe 10 years down the line. But from technology standpoint, I think like 2.5 to 3 years.
3 years. Really, you guys believe it's going to happen?
Come to Bhopal, we'll show it to you.
see,
But I'm talking about zero error. It has to be zero error, right?
See, technology, I think we have all the now tools and the know-how which can enable it. But see, product and science has two differences, right?
Emma?
So there is already autonomous vehicles in many, many, many applications that is controlled environment. You mentioned airplanes, that's very controlled. But we want to use autonomous in a system way, right? So it's impact the majority of the people in India. And then we have a fleet of vehicles that lives for 15 years, maybe 20 years. And those will not disappear within a second. So I think the easiest way to actually introduce autonomous vehicles in the major city of India is to build specific roads only for autonomous vehicles.
What do you guys think? Come on, jump in. Do we need specially demarcated, well-laned, clear, well-lit in the night roads
Because
which you
the
can drive?
technology is already there. You just read
No,
the
and
road.
what about the monsoon factor and things, dust factor? And
If you look at it from like global stack lens, definitely it's going to take a lot more time because most of the questions emanated in the level 5 autonomy from the deterministic standpoint. So real world is not deterministic, it's stochastic, it's this complex, it's adverse, it's probabilistic. One of the most important errors that the autonomous industry made as a whole, like even after $200 billion investment, the global autonomy stack from 2009 to like until 2023 is like having deterministic representation. I mean, even when we are driving on roads in India, for example, let's suppose there's a school bus. we would have like some anticipation of like someone might come from the rear. This is the kind of sort of mindset. This is the kind of thinking that we have in place. I mean, we often think that okay, something might happen. So unless you build, and this is exactly like what we have been doing. I mean, to give the autonomous vehicle a probabilistic view of the environment. When you deal in probabilities, you are not dealing in deterministic cases. So when you go for the deterministic cases, you are going to come up with the corner cases one by one. It's going to take not just like 5 or 10 years, maybe a lot more than that. And this is exactly what we changed when we initiated autonomous driving way back in like 2015 in India. Is to not start with determinism, to start with the probabilistic representation of the environment, and that actually changes everything. And because of that, I think we are the only company in the world as of now that is operating both on and off-road autonomy at scale. Exception is like Kodiak, but you can look at the Kodiak like what they are doing. So
Sanjeev, your thoughts, Gagan?
See, like I say, I like always point out, right? There's a definitely technological layer, but to productize something, right? There are a lot. Like I'll give you one example. So one of the very core technology that requires to enable autonomous driving is something called drive-by-wire, to be able to control your steering electronically. All the airplanes had it way back in 1990s. So there is no mechanical linkage between the wing flap and the pilot's control. In cars, we do not have a fully by-wire system. Every car still have a mechanical link between the steering wheel and the tires. And now, technologically, yes, it is possible, but there are layers. Okay, what if the hardware fails? How is the liability that can come out? In a car, see, there is a $250 million plane. You can put a lot of layers of redundancy. In a 10 lakh car, you might not have that much scope, right? So again, there is a tech, then you have to bring it at the right price point, then you have to solve insurance and liability.
I think time's up, but what we'll do is we'll just give each of the speakers a short time. Question is very simple. What do you think is the most important step today for autonomous in India? One thing, all of you, one by one. Gagan?
I think we just need to more people to come up, right? One person cannot solve. When 10 people try, two's approach will work very well. Right now, if you really count how many autonomous driving companies you can really find in India.
So you're saying it's more finance, it's more risk taking, it's more
risk, right?
Regulation,
financial risk, employees risk, regulatory
regulation,
risk. Everything.
Sanjeev, can you repeat the question again?
What's the one thing that's important right now for autonomous driving to progress in India? One thing. Is it regulation, finance? Is it tech? Is it?
I think all at the same time, or else you just build it.
You have to just build it. I think, yeah. What about the legal factor? You don't think that's important?
Sorry?
Legality. What happens in the case of an accident?
Definitely. I said like it's a combination of all of those.
Fair point.
But if you need to build it, just need to build it.
Correct. Emma, looking at your side of the business, the data collection, do you think we are moving in the right direction? Where do you think we will finally attain that, assisted level 2, level 3?
I think that if the drivers doesn't wear seatbelt, drink alcohol, and ignore the seat lanes, it doesn't matter if we force them to use ADAS system. So I think there are more easier win to save lives in the traffic in India than focusing on autonomous. But if we think on the factor that India is growing 10% per year, put 10% more vehicles on the street every year in this environment where you can't even get forward with your vehicle, it will stand still. So systematically, we need to solve it. And autonomous vehicles can solve it because it has the progression of putting through tons of vehicles very efficiently.
All right, thank you guys. It's been really exciting, and I think we can go on for another half hour. But right now the session is closed. So just a vote of thanks to everybody here, Maharashtra Tourism, and of course the company Imagine Next for having this event. Thanks.